While figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius frequently come to mind when discussing Stoicism, the philosophical tradition actually traces its origins back to Zeno of Citium around the year 300 BC. The ultimate objective of this school of thought is to live in accordance with nature, a concept that requires you to harmonize with the cosmos by embracing its fundamental laws, while simultaneously maintaining strict consistency between your internal thoughts and outward behaviors. By adopting this mindset, you can navigate your existence with tranquility and grace, allowing you to actualize your inherent potential and attain eudaimonia, a state often inaccurately translated as mere happiness, but which is far more accurately described as profound fulfillment. A pervasive misunderstanding surrounding this philosophy is the assumption that it breeds coldness and suppresses all emotion. Yet, reality contradicts this entirely. For instance, the opening section of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations dedicates an entire chapter to honoring the profound significance of his loved ones and mentors. Rather than treating philosophy as a detached theoretical exercise, he demonstrates how to implement Stoic principles practically in your everyday affairs, revealing that the true essence of this discipline is best understood as a masterful art of living. Contemporary practitioners frequently highlight four primary pillars of character, known as the cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, which were acknowledged by Plato and later Christian thinkers, though their roots likely extend even deeper into antiquity. The term itself originates from the Latin word virtus, denoting moral superiority, which the ancient Romans utilized to describe an array of admirable human traits, from physical prowess and bravery to unwavering ethical integrity. To cultivate these qualities is to achieve excellence in your very humanity, ultimately paving the way for a life characterized by genuine joy and inner balance. Aristotle famously framed virtue as a precise balance between the extremes of excess and deficiency, suggesting that this golden mean rarely sits perfectly in the center, but rather leans toward one side. Much like healthy confidence rests somewhere between crushing self-doubt and arrogant vanity. Building upon this, the Stoic thinkers maintained that moral excellence remains the sole genuine good, serving as the only necessary and complete requirement for you to experience a truly joyful existence. You can view these ethical pillars as practical guidelines for existing peacefully alongside your own mind, the surrounding community, and the unpredictable circumstances that unfold across the globe. In practice, wisdom enables you to align with your authentic nature. Justice facilitates peaceful cooperation within your community, while courage and temperance empower you to gracefully accept whatever destiny the external world delivers. Naturally, these characteristics are deeply intertwined. For example, you require ethical wisdom to treat others fairly, just as you need bravery to practice consistent self-restraint and moderation. To clarify this interconnectedness, ancient philosophers proposed an analogy. Much like a single person can simultaneously be a military commander, a speaker, and a poet, these moral pillars form a unified whole that simply operates across different domains of your behavior. Let us now explore these foundational principles that can guide your daily actions. Standing in stark contrast to the flaw of cowardice, the virtue of courage demands that you boldly defend your convictions and confront everyday obstacles without complaint, all while preserving your moral integrity. Furthermore, this principle requires you to relentlessly pursue objectivity, recognizing that your mental anguish stems not from external realities, but entirely from your personal judgments regarding those events. You must make a conscious effort to view your surroundings with absolute clarity, stripping away the biased interpretations that your mind instinctively attaches to every situation you encounter. Within this philosophical framework, bravery also encompasses the quiet endurance of physical suffering, general discomfort, and ultimately, your own mortality. It asks that you remain unshaken by terror, demonstrating a steadfast willingness to face threats, agony, or coercion head-on. The ancient writer, Aulus Gellius, illustrates this through an anecdote about an unnamed philosopher who found himself trapped at sea during a catastrophic tempest. As the vessel faced imminent destruction and the crew stared down the threat of drowning, the scholar grew visibly terrified and lost all color in his face. Yet he notably abstained from the hysterical weeping exhibited by his fellow passengers. Once the fierce weather broke and the waters returned to a tranquil state, a wealthy, well-dressed traveler mockingly confronted the scholar, questioning why a supposed master of philosophy would turn pale with fright, while he himself remained entirely unbothered by the peril. Choosing not to engage with the arrogant passenger, the sage remained silent until they eventually reached the safety of the shore. At that point, a more respectful bystander approached to inquire about the physical display of panic, prompting the teacher to finally explain the reaction he had deliberately withheld from his previous antagonist. The scholar clarified that even the most enlightened individual will inevitably experience a sudden jolt of alarm and lose their complexion momentarily, driven not by a rational belief in impending doom, but by rapid, involuntary biological reflexes that temporarily bypass logical thought. However, the critical distinction is that the disciplined thinker quickly denies agreement to these horrifying mental images, actively discarding them because they recognize no genuine cause for lasting terror. Unlike a foolish person who readily accepts their initial panic as a truthful reflection of reality and allows their fear to dictate their state of mind, the wise practitioner merely experiences a superficial physical shock before firmly reasserting their reasoned judgment, understanding that such sudden alarms are nothing more than deceptive illusions devoid of actual danger. Shifting to the next virtue, you must understand that the ancient interpretation of justice diverges significantly from our contemporary legal definitions. Instead, it centers entirely on the moral obligation to interact equitably with your fellow human beings and to consistently pursue righteous actions in every social encounter. This unwavering commitment to ethical behavior is perhaps best summarized by Marcus Aurelius himself, who famously declared that your only concern should be executing the correct course of action, allowing all other consequences to fall away as irrelevant. And consequently, this idea represents a far more expansive vision of social morality, embracing profound compassion, generosity, and an active goodwill toward humanity. Throughout historical Stoic texts, you will frequently encounter the archetype of the sage or heroic figure who steadfastly shields the vulnerable within their community. Such an individual would willingly confront a vicious predator, absorbing agonizing wounds to safeguard those unable to protect themselves, driven by an inherent recognition of their shared value, treating neighbors with the same deep devotion one reserves for siblings and close relatives. To illustrate this interconnectedness, the philosopher Hierocles suggests visualizing human relationships as an arrangement of overlapping, concentric rings. You inherently stand at the core of this model, surrounded immediately by your kin and companions, with subsequent layers expanding outward to encompass local society, the entire human race, and ultimately, a profound reverence for the entire globe. The primary objective is to continually pull those distant populations inward, treating strangers with the same profound care and intimacy as those occupying your innermost circle. This principle should certainly not be conflated with modern historical movements advocating for total abstinence from alcohol. Within this ancient philosophy, temperance is fundamentally about exercising rigorous self-restraint and maintaining a harmonious equilibrium in all aspects of life. It requires the critical discernment to recognize which paths to pursue, which temptations to sidestep, and which actions to entirely abandon. By leveraging resolute willpower, you learn to execute the appropriate tasks flawlessly, while systematically avoiding any form of destructive overindulgence. Whenever external forces attempt to drag you toward immoral behavior, whether by stoking anger, terror, or animosity. The required defense is a highly deliberate, measured reaction, rather than a sudden, emotionally charged outburst. Engaging in consistent reflective writing serves as an exceptional method for cultivating this specific strength, a practice heavily favored by these ancient thinkers. As the modern essayist Nassim Taleb aptly characterizes it, this philosophy centers entirely on taming your volatile feelings, rather than attempting to completely eradicate them from your psychological makeup. The formerly enslaved philosopher Epictetus famously advised against demanding that the universe bend to your personal desires. Instead, he urged embracing reality exactly as it unfolds, which guarantees a profoundly smoother existence. Naturally, adopting such an accepting mindset requires immense bravery and intertwines deeply with courageous endurance. The foundational task for any practitioner of this worldview is learning to meticulously distinguish between elements within your personal power and those entirely outside your influence, a crucial framework formally recognized as the Dichotomy of Control. Your primary responsibility involves peacefully acknowledging unalterable circumstances, while channeling all your energy into governing your own reactions and deliberate choices. Cultivating true sagacity and practical prudence requires a continuous process of rigorous study, engaging dialogue, and navigating inevitable mistakes. Consequently, an enlightened individual develops the extraordinary capacity to provide themselves with exceptionally sound, rational guidance during times of intense turmoil. The Roman statesman Seneca astutely noted that physical aging, marked by graying hair and deep lines, merely indicates prolonged survival rather than a truly meaningful existence. Because your temporal lifespan remains your most precious and strictly non-renewable resource, dedicating yourself to relentless self-improvement becomes an absolute necessity. Although ancient practitioners acknowledged that a fully actualized individual, one operating with flawless logical consistency, is an exceptionally rare phenomenon, they maintained that this theoretical sage provides a crucial, guiding benchmark for everyone to emulate. Advancing toward this elevated standard is not merely achievable, but it is a critical imperative for a fulfilling life. Within this framework, true insight involves accurately distinguishing between genuine moral excellence, destructive corruption, and neutral elements that carry no inherent moral weight, thereby enabling flawless conduct across diverse situations. Fundamentally, this requires grasping life's most profound priorities, a pursuit intimately connected to the literal translation of philosophy itself, a passionate devotion to seeking out absolute truth. Throughout classical texts, the profound misery caused by resisting your own destiny frequently emerges as a central cautionary theme. To counter this, adherents actively cultivate Amor Fati, an enthusiastic embrace of destiny that welcomes every single event that transpires during your journey. Reclaiming authority over your path demands recognizing that external conditions lack inherent moral bias, allowing you to synchronize peacefully with unfolding circumstances that vastly exceed your personal jurisdiction. By rigorously adhering to these moral pillars, you successfully evade the hidden snare of internal psychological captivity driven by base desires. These foundational principles represent the daily operational code utilized by dedicated practitioners to elevate both their own existence and the well-being of their communities, integrating these rules into every conceivable scenario. In the end, this robust intellectual tradition transcends mere theory, serving as a comprehensive manual that instructs you in the profound art of existing exceptionally well. Following that pivotal instant, my entire perspective shifted. I actually discovered a strange delight in provoking his philosophical lectures, simply to find amusement in the beads of perspiration gathering on his forehead and nose. Beyond this internal caprice, you must also recognize the profound role of external chance that constantly surrounds us. The author suggests maintaining an unwavering vigilance for the unexpected, remaining perpetually prepared to seize whatever random opportunities might arise. While meticulously organized social gatherings rarely hold much genuine appeal, relying on serendipity can brilliantly transform even the most trivial occurrence into an abundant wellspring of entertainment. Transitioning into the subsequent segment, The Seducer's Diary, you encounter the ultimate, extreme manifestation of this aesthetic worldview. Within its pages, a protagonist meticulously chronicles his calculated romantic conquests, treating the pursuit and subsequent abandonment of women as nothing more than a twisted, artistic game. Interestingly, even a dedicated follower of the aesthetic lifestyle is bound to experience a profound sense of unease while absorbing this dark narrative. It seems highly probable that Kierkegaard deliberately crafted this harrowing account to serve as a stark warning regarding the inherent dangers of confining your existence solely to the aesthetic sphere of life. Moving forward to part 2 of Either/Or, the text introduces a powerful counter-argument to this pleasure-seeking lifestyle, presented through the measured voice of the ethicist. This moral advocate vigorously attempts to persuade the pleasure seeker to embrace the responsibilities inherent to the ethical sphere of human existence. By anchoring his life in duty, the ethicist contends that he ultimately achieves a far deeper contentment than the individual who remains obsessively consumed by the desperate hunt for personal gratification. Just as the philosophical adage reminds us that genuine happiness cannot be forcefully hunted, but must naturally follow our actions, the final burden rests entirely upon you to weigh these opposing philosophies and forge your own definitive conclusion.